This morning's chalice lighting comes from the words of a Hopi elder. There is a river flowing now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel they are torn apart and will suffer greatly. Know that the river has its destination. The elders say that we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, keep our eyes open and our heads above water, and I say, see who is in there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves, for the moment that we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to a halt. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your vocabulary and attitude. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
Good morning, River Road. Good morning. My name is Kirsten Lodel, and it has been my incredible honor to have served as your intern minister this past year. Today is Father's Day, and so we celebrate all the fathers and fathers-in-law and grandfathers and uncles and father figures and caregivers, biological and chosen, including those here only in memory. We also acknowledge that holidays like this can come with their share of complicated and even painful emotions. And we give thanks for the fact that this is a time and space and place that can hold it all. The joy, the celebration, the complication, and the pain. Today is also Juneteenth, our newest federally designated holiday, and a time when we commemorate the moment when the last enslaved people in the United States learned of their freedom on June 19th, 1865. More than 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln delivered the Emancipation Proclamation, Black people in Galveston, Texas were told that their freedom had finally been secured. Our worship theme this month at River Road is Celebrating Blessings, and today we will explore the blessing of freedom. 54 years after the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. launched what would be his last and perhaps his boldest endeavor, the Poor People's Campaign, activists and progressive people of faith from across the country came together in Washington yesterday to resurrect and continue that great freedom movement, which demands economic justice on moral terms. I was proud, along with Reverends Amanda and Nancy, to be a part of the delegation representing River Road and Unitarian Universalists across the country. Speaking on the main stage yesterday, Bernice King reminded us that her father viewed the elimination of poverty as a continuation of the ongoing abolitionist movement that a holiday like Juneteenth calls us to reflect upon and recommit to. As we reflect on freedom, we also want to acknowledge that this community comes together in worship today on the traditional land of the Nacotchtank and Piscataway people, and on land on which enslaved African people and their descendants labored. We honor the memory of all those who are part of our history with a commitment to a more just future. We now want to take a moment to allow all of you to warmly greet one another in whatever way feels comfortable to you. For those online, please make use of the chat function and say hello to each other. Let us welcome each other. What a lovely sound. What a lovely sound. For those who are here in the sanctuary, we want to point your attention to the fact that we have 2 candle stations here up in front and 1 in the back, and we invite you, as you are able, to light a candle in honor of someone or something that is on your heart at any time during today's service. For those joining at home, we invite you to light your own candle or chalice as well. Each and every one of you, carrying all that you are with you today into this sacred time and space, you are welcome here. We now invite you to stand if you are able and lift your voices together in our opening hymn, which is number 1017 in your hymnals, which we are using for the first time since COVID shutdown. Woohoo! It's called Building a New Way. The fabulous Linda will be our song leader. Come, let us worship together.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, getting stronger every day.
the service when we typically would do our Time for All Ages, or as we've been calling it this year, our prophetic voices. Of course, in this faith tradition, we pull upon the wisdom throughout the ages of many different voices. And this morning, we draw upon the wisdom of the song, Lift Every Voice and Sing.
The laughter and the tears, the real losses and the enormous victories that have brought us. And so it is every Sunday. We have a ritual of sharing our joys and concerns, of lighting candles, each one of which is just the barest symbol of the depth of the stories we carry into this sacred space. And so today, like every day, we gather with our joys and concerns, our laughter and our tears. We gather on a Father's Day for all those who attend to and care for the given ones and the chosen ones who teach us how to be more fully ourselves. We gather for the ones who try and stumble and try again to be the kind of example we need in our lives. We gather for those of us hurt by the ones who should have done the parenting and for the folks we have found in every generation who picked up the pieces for those who didn't. For those lost and found and remembered, and right next to us, we hold it all with honesty and grace. We gather in memory. We gather in rejoicing, knowing that on July 17th, that afternoon, we will gather to remember one of our own, the deeply gracious, always humble, ever so brilliant Ken Van Mechelen, his memorial service that afternoon right here at River Road, which we hope you'll mark your calendars for. We gather for the transitions. I see Heidi, who retired after ever so many years faithfully teaching, bringing art and music and hope and faith and the simple persistence of one's presence to generations of children. We gather among those who have graduated, taken new jobs, built new homes, shared new adventures. And we gather in the very recent grief of those among us, including that of Raj Mehta, whose dear friend and family member Mahendra Shai died Thursday night after a stroke. We celebrate the honor of that life. His service will be on Monday, June 20th, and we sit and gather and stand with Raj and with so many of us through it all. I also want to lift up the enormous joy of what it is to serve and grow together. Today, as you know, is Kirsten's last Sunday with us as our intern. We'll be celebrating in a great many ways, and I want to invite you after the service to join us at what I am calling the Kirsten Kiosk out on the plaza for cake and fellowship and laughter and probably tears. The joy that I share with you is the joy of formation, not just of one among us, but of all of us, formed and forming by one another every step of the way. Kirsten, is our great joy to be formed and forming in this ministry that we share. And of course, every single thing we do together, including ministry, is just an expression of how we want to be together. And there are ways to connect in the life of our congregation that help us extend our service and our formation beyond the limits of the Sunday morning service. Today, our social justice leaders will be gathering with Reverend Amanda to help envision who each of them and the program as a whole wants to be as we move forward. And starting July 3rd, you can join us for our summer worship series. We will be gathered at 10:30 for each of the 5 Sundays in July for a watch party live streaming a service from one of our large congregations here in the Washington, D.C. area. And do come July 17th when that service, live streaming out to the entire region, will come right here from River Road. 10:30 every Sunday in July. Please join us preaching along the Potomac summer worship series. And finally, I am very pleased to say this is the last time I will be mentioning the stewardship campaign from this here pulpit on a Sunday morning. Some of you may already know, but we achieved an almost impossible thing in this economy in these pandemic days. As of last week, River Road has exceeded our annual pledge campaign goal. We did it because of you. We did it because of our incredible leaders, and we did it because of new pledgers, longtime givers, and folks who know that this place is a part of the core of your own identity in the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What a gift to be each other's people.
We now invite you into a time of prayer, followed by a time of silent meditation before we sing Spirit of Life together. Please join me in prayer. Spirit of life and of love, every week we carve out this sacred time in this sacred space so that we may reflect on our lives and the times in which we live and think deeply about what is important to us and what kind of people we want to be when we leave this sanctuary and head back into the world. We come to grieve. We come to celebrate. We come to be in community. Today, we reflect on the idea of freedom at a time when it can feel like Dr. King's proverbial arc of justice is bending in reverse. And yet, here in this time and space, reminders of our freedom are all around us. We start where we are. We are here. We choose to be here. We choose this free faith. We choose to be reflective. We choose who we love. We choose to step away from people and systems that wish for nothing but our demise. When the world is begging us to be cruel and ugly and hateful, we choose peace over and over again. We infuriate our would-be adversaries with our stubbornly insistent choice to believe in beloved community. We choose to show that strength can be found in apologies. We choose to show our giftedness through our capacity to change and evolve. We choose to show that repair is possible if we insist on knowing and telling the truth about our history. Spirit of all that lives and loves, this morning we extend our hearts to all those who couldn't begin to envision the simple daily freedoms we take for granted. We extend our care to those who are pained by the gap between our society's claims of freedom and their daily reality. We promise that we will never, ever seek to enslave or colonize or debase another with will or words. We commit to the ongoing work of liberation and justice, and we do it all, every bit of it, in the name of love. Amen.
Giving is a spiritual practice, and this is a community of generosity. Through our giving, we build the beloved community, both here within these walls and beyond in our community. To learn more about why we give and how we give, you can always go online to get more information. You can also give right online. Every time that we give, every time we extend our hands, every time we practice generosity, we build just a little bit more of that beloved community. We connect just a little bit more to one another. So as the music plays, please give as you're willing and able.
Today's reading is drawn from Adrienne Marie Brown's book entitled Emergent Strategy. Quote, "We have lived through a good half-century of individualistic, linear organizing led by charismatic individuals or budget-building institutions, which intends to reform or revolutionize society but falls back into modeling the oppressive tendencies against which they claim to be pushing. Some of those tendencies are seeking to assert one right way or one right strategy. Many align with the capitalistic belief that constant growth and critical mass is the only way to create change, even if they don't use that language. There are new strategies emerging or being remembered. Many would describe this as a shift from masculine to feminine or patriarchal to feminist leadership. I see that, and I think it's also about something beyond all of our binaries. If love were the central practice of a new generation of organizers and spiritual leaders, it would have a massive impact on what was considered organizing. If the goal was to increase the love rather than dominating a constant opponent, I think we could actually imagine liberation from constant oppression. I think we would suddenly be seeing everything we do, everyone we meet, not through the tactical eyes of war, but through eyes of love. We would see there's no such thing as a blank canvas, an empty land, or a new idea. But everywhere there is complex, ancient, fertile ground full of potential. We would organize with the perspective that there is wisdom and experience and amazing stories in the communities we love, and we would want to listen, support, collaborate, merge, and grow through fusion, not through competition. We would understand that the strength of our movement is in the strength of our relationships, which can only be measured by their depth. Scaling up would mean going deeper, being more vulnerable, and more empathetic. We are excited by what we create. We believe it is possible to create the next world. We believe, we believe, we believe. So concludes our reading.
Much like any concept, major idea, or notion, liberation, used in the broad sense, feels to me unmanageable. Not unimportant, not unworthy, but unmanageable. Perhaps because it's too deep a yearning, a vision cast too far off into the future, people who are too abstract, ideals that are too rooted in our own ego and our own anxiety. Perhaps it feels this way because we don't always measure up, or we fail, or the numbers don't match, or perhaps it's because life is hard and holding to something so amorphous feels daunting and unmanageable. There's familiarity with this conundrum and other large, broad concepts. Ideals of self-care or spiritual practice come to mind for me. There's a sort of messaging that to care for oneself or one's spirit can be packaged into these neat and tidy actions and then, of course, be exchanged for a feeling. We've made these beautiful notions into even more goals and deliverables for ourselves and for each other, and how could we ever live up to all of it? So I say unmanageable in that metaphorical sense, but also literally. Liberation seems to be unmanageable. How could any one person or organization or institution or political system get it right, especially when it means something different to each one of us in our own particular contexts? So when it gets that big and complicated and confusing, I find myself going back to the basics, back to the depth. Self-care is deeper than a spa day. Spiritual practice is deeper than what yoga poses your body can get into. Meditation is deeper than how long you can do it. And liberation is deeper than the exchange of doing the right thing for the right feeling. It's about making space. It's all about making space. Yoga makes space for the breath to move. Meditation makes space for the mind, body, and spirit to unite. Self-care makes space for our lives to happen in sustainable ways. And liberation makes space for the spirit of justice to move in and through our lives, our hearts, our communities, and of course, the wider world. Liberation is making space for possibilities yet to be imagined. It's making space for people to live into their full agency and self-determination, for systems to work together, for the good of all of the people and for this planet. Liberation makes space for us to live our lives out loud. Adrienne Marie Brown shares with us, we must walk the spiritual path that is available to only us in this time. With its unique combination of wisdom and creation, she writes, I believe there are many ways to find that simple path within ourselves, and I think that those of us who wish to see a truly, radically different world must demand of ourselves the possibility that we are called to lead, not from right to left, or from minority to majority, but from spirit toward liberation. She says liberation is a practice born from our spirits. Today's readings so far have come from her book, Emergent Strategy. So Emergent Strategy is a social change organizing method which manifests itself through basic principles, which are actually just reminders of lessons from nature. In the text, she talks a lot about the patterns and complex systems found in nature and human relations. And rather than a step-by-step guide to organizing for change, she finds voices from the margins to share their stories. She finds voices from the margins who work in this complexity rather than against it. And she describes emergence as a framework. Her words are, the whole is a mirror, is a sum of its parts. Existence is fractal, and the health of the cell is the health of the species, is the health of the planet. On this screen, you'll see those basic guiding principles for this work. Change is constant. Another principle, small is good, small is all. There's always enough right time for the right work. Less prep, more presence. There is a conversation in the room that only these people at this moment can have. Find it. Never a failure, always a lesson. Trust the people. If you trust the people, they become trustworthy. What you pay attention to grows, and to move at the speed of trust, focusing on critical connections more than critical mass, building resilience by building relationships. So in those basic guiding principles, we begin to take some shape of what justice can look like in our lives. It goes from unmanageable to kind of shape, to kind of form. So we have the what of justice, and we have kind of the how in the emergent strategy, but what about the why? Why liberation? Why social justice? What is our foundation? Why do we do this work? And what is the role of people of progressive and liberal faith in the work of liberation and justice, especially in this climate, with disaster and heartache and tragedy and tension around every corner? Who is right? Who is wrong? Do we do this just because we're good people who should do it? But of course, we know that there's something deeper. We know our faith calls us into something deeper. So we turn to the wisdom of our UU ancestor, James Luther Adams. He was disturbed by the lackluster response of the church to the rising Nazism and fascism in Germany in the 30s. He devoted his teaching and preaching and theology to challenging those systems and pushing liberal and religious progressivism, especially our own Unitarianism, to live into its values of justice and community. About this, he writes, "Let me put it autobiographically and say that in Nazi Germany, I soon came to question, what is it in my preaching and my political action that would or could stop this? It is a liberal attitude to say that we keep ourselves informed and read the best papers on these matters and perhaps join a voluntary association now and then, but to be involved with other people so that it costs and so that we expose the evils of society, that requires something like conversion. Something more than an attitude. It requires a sense that there's something wrong and I must be different from the way I have been." And he also writes, "The aim of religious awareness religious faith, and religious community must be radical change. So while we could stand here and wax philosophical and theological about the role of faith community and the work of justice or the deeper why, of which there is a lot to say and there is a lot to learn, his words ring true to what I have deeply experienced and learned through, from, and with faith community. That this faith is about truth-telling, reshaping, and creating the ways to get free. Ours is a faith of deep transformation, which is at the heart of radical change, and radical change which is a vehicle for that liberation. So then we have to ask ourselves, what could this transformative and radical change actually look like and feel like in our lives? So we can blend the way of emergent strategy, which we mentioned earlier, and the principles, and we can also take our own UU principles, and we start to gain some insight on just how communal and shared and also individual this work could be. While we know we don't do it alone, we know that we are invited to examine ourselves and embrace who we are and what our particular magic is that we bring to this work. And we all have a role. The social change ecosystem map, which you see right here behind me, is a tool designed by the Building Movement Project. This is a framework designed for individuals and organizations and even institutions who are committed to this work of liberation and social change. It also demonstrates my most cherished value, which is get in where you fit in. I have preached about it so many times, get in where you fit in. It also disrupts this narrative that we need to be all things at all times or that we carry this load alone. We need not all be disruptors or movement makers or leaders, but liberation, which is born from our spirit, can be an extension of what we love and how we already move through this world. As weavers, experimenters, frontline responders, visionaries, builders, caregivers, disruptors, healers, storytellers, guides, and all of the intersections and crisscrosses and overlaps therein. Of course, you can find more information about each of these categories, but today, in honor of Juneteenth, it feels important to me to just celebrate a few folks who not only taught us what it means to believe in freedom, but taught us how to live that freedom out loud. So it makes sense for me to start with the experimenters, because experimenting is hard and it's vulnerable, and trying something new or retrying something old comes with its risks and criticisms, but without it, where would our culture be? What would our movements look like? What would we have lost? Music has a way of moving and connecting us, of shifting culture, and it's a tool of liberation. You'll see on the screen, funk. It's a movement born from experimenting. Experimenting with instruments and technology and sound, and also with concepts. Parliament and Funkadelic, those are two bands that you saw up there. They're some of the most notable funk bands of our time, and their music is all about, as they say, boarding the mothership. What it would be, what it would mean to lay claim on our agency and ability, and to create new worlds, new sounds, new possibilities. They also redefined what Blackness was allowed to look like. They embraced androgyny and softness and silliness and satire. They made space for themselves in an industry that was built on stereotypes and tropes and stealing what was new and repurposing it. They created their own thing, and what they created influences music to this day. They believed in freedom. And of course, there's the storytellers. The ones that synthesize, remember, pass down, the ones that teach us the experience of life matters deeply, and stories come in all forms. Some people tell stories around fires or from books, but Ruth Carter tells stories with costumes. You see her there holding her Oscar, likely the one she got for her costume design for the movie Black Panther. And through design, she helped weave a story of what a people untouched by colonialism could look like, could be like, could live like. She showed us her vision of what a free people would and could create, what a society could be. She believed in freedom. Sci-fi author and Afrofuturist Octavia Butler, she showed us another vision of society, one ravaged by greed, privatization, climate catastrophe, and inaction, set only in 2024. Her story, Parable of the Sower, and its sequel, Parable of the Talents. It's not only a cautionary tale, but one of change, hope, and the ability to shape God through shaping change. She tells us that we can shape God through shaping change. Octavia Butler is also a foundational text for the work of Adrienne Maree Brown, who we've been reading from this morning, and countless other visionaries. She built a new world. She believed in freedom. And finally, there's the builders. The ones who press us and move us into something new, the ones that rearrange our thinking and our understanding and our perspective, the ones who lay foundations for liberation. So let's talk about Alice Walker. You may know her as the author of the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Color Purple, but it goes so much deeper than that with Alice Walker. She coined the term womanism, which has become a system of ethical reasoning and understanding which centers the perspective, the experience, and the lives of Black women within theological and social discourse, in the middle of the story. Not on the margins, not to the side. Simply put, she shifted those margins directly to the center. Womanism, it speaks to the intersections of race and class and gender and orientation. And this term, this concept, this idea, it's led to the expansion of the canon of theological and biblical thought. Her work has influenced academics and freedom fighters alike. Her work speaks to ordinary people trying to find their place in a world not built for them. Her work has directly impacted me and shaped me who I am as a woman of faith. She believed in freedom. So besides being absolutely awesome, what do all these people have in common? They made a space for themselves and for others. They used their unique talents and their minds and their skills and their gifts to make space for what had yet to be imagined. And that's the only invitation for us all this morning, to tap into our own magic. Whether healer or disruptor or storyteller or builder, maybe a mix of it all, what is your particular magic? How are you getting free today? What do each of us bring to the freedom table for one another? Small is all. We don't have to change the world. We don't have to be Octavia Butler. We don't have to be Alice Walker. We don't have to alter history or even alter our own lives. But like Octavia Butler teaches us, all that we touch, we change. And all that we change, changes us. Liberation is big, and it is complicated, and it is messy, but it is also here for us right now in this moment, waiting for space, longing for expression. So let us do it. Get in where we fit in, make the space, and transform life into the shape of justice. May it be so. Ashe. Blessed be.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. The older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm. To me, young people come first. They have the courage where we fail. And if I can but shed some light as they carry us through the gale, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it's done. In struggling myself, don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way our struggle survives. I'm a woman who speaks with a voice, and I must be heard. At times I might be quite difficult, but I will bow down to no man's word. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot wait until it comes. It comes.
Thank you. Of course, the work that we do together isn't possible without so much work going in on the front end. As always, we'd like to give some gratitude to our tech folks. Marsha Leonard received a file from me with 15 images on Friday and put that together. Of course, we've got to thank the artists and the builders and the creators for making it possible to have these visually stunning images this morning. That is work of liberation. And of course, our musicians this morning for bringing us such a gift in the music and the word of that song. Thank you to each of you this morning. But I would be remiss if I didn't thank somebody who's been such an inspiration to each of us. And I want to invite you to come up here this morning. We'll just scooch right on over here so you can see this beautiful angel who's been such an inspiration to all of us this year at River Road. I get really attached, so it's hard to have interns and not have them anymore. But honestly, you've made the work of doing faith community and worship and planning just such an honor, and we wanted to give you this morning these wonderful little orchids and to appreciate you and show you some gratitude. Thank you, Kirsten. Oh.
Let me stab you.
We will surely miss you, but we'll be celebrating you after the service today. So thank you so much for everything you've brought to our community. Damn it, I did not mean to do this. Okay. This is yours. I'm not sure what it is. So as we round out for our benediction today, Reverend Nancy.
We're going to awkwardly give you more presents than you can hold. And so, as we take this light we have kindled out into the waiting world to share what gifts for liberation we each have, may the truth that makes us free, the love that casts out fear, and the hope that never dies guide us and those we love and those we do not love forward together till the day spring breaks and all the shadows flee away. Our service is ended. Let us go in peace and with great love. Amen.
Amen.
Come celebrate Houston.